and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you're new. For today's video I thought I would try and do something in a bit of a different way. So I drew this flower piece the other day with coloured pencils, and I was really happy with the outcome, and I thought rather than just speed it up and do it as a piece like I normally would, like a normal video, I decided to slow it down slightly. I mean, it's still sped up, but I'm doing it more of a sort of tutorial way. Now, I'm not saying this is the only way to do this. I'm not saying it's the best way. It's probably definitely not even a good way. It's just the way that I personally choose to do my pieces like this, and I've been quite pleased with the outcome the last few times I've done it. So if you want to know how I did it, I'm going to give like a brief description as it goes through the video. I just wanted to film a little intro to explain that, so that you sort of knew what was going on, so it wasn't just a bit like, what's going on. Also, the reference image is actually a photo that I took myself. We went to the allotment the other day, and I took a photo of all the flowers, and I really liked this one because the flower was quite in focus and the background was blurred out. So yeah, I will leave the reference image on screen as well. Like I say, it's just my own photograph. It is on my Instagram along with some other flower photos if you want some sort of references. I'll leave my social medias down below. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy the video, and if you do this as well, remember to tag me on any like Instagram or anything, because I'll really want to see your versions. But yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy the video, and let's just get started. Hi guys, so the first step that I do is I use washi tape to mask off the edges of my paper. I like to use washi tape just purely because it's not quite as sticky, and it won't rip the edges of my page as much. Also, you can get it in quite nice colourful patterns and designs, and I just find it easier to use. It's not quite as thick either. But I always like to layer that down on the edges of my page just so that I get a nice clean crisp white border, and it makes it easier rather than having your pencil flicking off the edge of the page. But you don't have to do that step, it's completely up to you. Then I obviously did my pencil sketch with the coloured pencil, layered down the watercolour pencils on the background, and then I just blended those out with water, obviously. And then I start from the buds, which you can see me doing here, because they're not the furthest thing away on the painting, on the picture, sorry, but they in my opinion were going to be the hardest part. But also, like, they didn't have as much detail, so it was quite hard to get them accurate because they were sort of a good mix between purple, blue and green. I think mine ended up a little bit too green, but that's fine because you can tweak things to how you want them to be, and if it's not exact, then, you know, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I do sort of tweak it all a little bit at the end anyway, so you will see that as it goes along. But it was definitely quite tricky with these because obviously the middle two buds, as you can see on my reference image, were darker and more green, and then I was trying to get all of the outer buds lighter so that they actually stood out from each other and that you could get that sense of depth, because that is very important with your painting. You don't want everything to look flat, and you don't want it all to look exactly the same. So I added more white highlights to the ones around the edge, especially at the front. I wish I would have added a few more extra highlights to the tips of the back ones, but that's all just hindsight. Anyway, then I moved on to the back foreground petals that weren't really part of a flower head as such. They were just a lot more blurred out. They were just background focus. And then I did the stems coming off from the middle to link the flower heads to the main stem. And then I just started each individual flower head, starting with the back furthest away ones and then moving round to the front, very forefront ones in the end. When I do my flower petal strokes, I'm literally just lightly layering colours that I see in the petal, where I see them, blending it out with white, touching up the colours a bit more, but I do every stroke in the direction of the petal so that it looks more realistic, because if you're colouring with like circles or something for a shape that's a straight line or like a curved line, it's not going to look realistic unless all your strokes are going in the right direction. So that's one thing that I would definitely recommend to take notice of. But yeah, like I say, I'm just doing the petals, and trying to get the pollen as bright as I could was quite difficult because I had kind of gone over the lines of where my sketch was with the background colour. I did go back and neaten it all up a little bit later on. And this petal that I'm doing currently right now, I went a bit too heavy with the blue, I think. So I did brighten that one up at the end, but that one had a lot more blue to it than the other petals. That brings me to the other important step that I would suggest, is to definitely make sure that you've got all the colours that you see in the image, not just look at it and think, oh, they're all purple. Look for the blues, the greens, the yellows, the browns. Like, there's so many other tones to it, and that's what's going to differentiate your petals. Admittedly, mine don't necessarily look the most separate from each other. I probably didn't get as much depth as I would have liked to, but it's semi-realistic, so I'm quite pleased with it. Here, like I say, I'm just touching up the background, getting it a bit deeper and darker, and just really smoothing out the outlines of those petals before I carried on with the rest. Another thing to note is obviously just that the middle section of the petals, closer to the bud in the centre, are going to be a lot darker, as you can see me darkening them up here, than the tips of the petals. They are going to be a lot more white because there's so much more light going through them than through the centre of the flower head. So yeah, I just keep repeating the same process. I add a few more like different variations to a purple tone here and there where I think I need it. And again, that just really helps the flower petals to stand out from each other. So this one here, I definitely added more of a magenta colour to the flower petal than anywhere else. And this flower head that I've moved on to now, the last one, was probably definitely by far my favourite one to do. Purely because it just, where the petals were folding, it gave it so much of a nicer look, and it was more of a challenge to try and accomplish that, to make it look like the petals were really curling in on themselves. All the other ones were quite straight. They had a bit of a curl to them, but not too much. And again, like I say, I know my sketch isn't entirely accurate, but this is just how I do it. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with the curling ones. All I do is on the very lightest parts, I just really lightly layer down the colour, blend it out with a lot of white, and then the other bits I just do as dark as I can, just so that you really get that definition and difference. But also pay attention to where it curls under the lip, because that's where you're going to have the most prominent shadow. But yeah, and then to finish off, I just went in with my white Posca pen, added more highlights, and then really deepened up the shadows. And I was super happy with the outcome. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Tag me in any recreations or anything that you do, and I'll see you soon for another video.